Okay, the day is finally here. It is time to get our first tree in the ground. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here today. It is Sunday, March 22nd, 2020. So we finally have everything in place in order to keep cows out so that we can plant something in the ground. So Lori and I are going to share that with you today. We finally get to put a tree in the ground. So where we're at, right now we're next to our chicken run and coop, and we have all of our starts here. Now you guys have seen us. In fact, I'll link the video here where we actually did our temporary protection to keep these trees safe from cattle, and our chicken tractors did a fantastic job of keeping these guys safe. So we've got a whole lot of trees, more than it seems in here, that we want to get to planting, but we wanted to start with a special tree that actually comes from the original farm, and that's the one you see down here. That is our honey mandarin. Now that tree, I'm going to go ahead and link that video as well. We showed you how you can dig up a tree and put it into a pot, and we had done that. It actually is doing really well. In fact, it's leaving out really well. You'll see that here. And also it's got a whole lot of flowers that are about to bud out as well. So it's doing fantastic in that pot. So a quick update there. But that's going to be our first tree in the ground here. So we figured that was a good transition. That's the only tree we pulled out of the ground here, or at the old house, and it'll be the first tree in the ground here on the new property. So first thing we need to do is we need to set this one free from its cage. So Lori and I are going to go ahead and get this out of the way, get this chicken tractor off of these plant starts so we can get to this tree. As we have our honey mandarin here, I've got another small start in there, which I think is a brown turkey fig, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to pull that out, grab a hand truck, and we're going to take it over to its new home. Okay, so we're done. Trees in place. So we've got it actually set where it's going to be. So this is going to be its home. Now obviously this is going to be a little different from how we typically would have to plant trees because it is in a pot. I do have some wood chips on top that I'm going to remove to make sure I'm dealing only with the soil, and we're going to make sure that it's nice and high. But let's talk a little bit about where we're at. So we are at the northwest corner of the home. This tree will receive full sun. We've talked about that many times. It's what it loves. So it'll have full sun. There will be a tree back there, a larger orange tree. We're going to have all of our mandarins basically coming across the front here, this honey mandarin being the first one. So if you followed us along with our irrigation series, you know that we have a 1/2 inch bubbler that will go on that riser right there, and there will be a nice big ring that goes around this whole area with wood chips and that kind of thing, and you're going to see that today. But first thing we need to do is we need to get this in the ground. We're actually going to get it in the ground first, and then we're going to go ahead and come back and take care of creating the ring. So what we need to do now, get the wood chips out. We need to get the hole around that dug. We'll be using the auger to do that. So we need to get the hole dug and get the tree down into the ground. Okay, so you can see we got the hole dug, so we're ready to go there. Now we were pulling out what appeared to be a lot of dirt. Honestly, that is broken down wood chips that have essentially turned into compost. That's what we have here. It started to get down to the point where we had a little bit of potting soil, so there's a mixture of both in here. But I can tell you, it's completely full of little red wigglers, so completely full of worms, which is really what we want to see. They've been having a good old time down there, eating up their whatever they eat, and creating just amazing gardener's gold in worm castings. So either way, we're going to actually use this to help amend the soil. Now, I will tell you, when it comes to soil and soil amendments, one of the things that we found to be true is you need very, very little as far as amendment. The reason being is these roots are going to go out from the hole horizontally, much more so than vertically down. So we already know that the roots are going to be out here in that ring pretty quickly. So the dirt that we're putting back in, we just want to make sure that the tree is kind of comfy and cozy in the very beginning. Give it a month or two and the roots are out here and it's dealing with this soil. So we won't amend too heavily, but because this is broken down so well, instead of using our typical amendment, which is that garden soil you see in the background over there, the Kellogg's basic garden soil, instead of using that, we're actually going to go ahead and amend with this, which is broken down wood chips that it's already used to. And of course, it's got the worms in there. So now what we need to do is get that tree from the pot into the hole. So we're going to do that now. We'll come back to you. We have that basically just about in the ground. Now, a couple things I want to point out. First thing, you saw how lightly we amended that soil. Now, that's the immediate soil underneath and a little bit of it around here, but not much. Again, we want these roots, and you can see these feeder roots. We want these roots going out into the soil and being perfectly happy there. Second thing, if Lori wants to slide in a little bit closer, I'm going to show you the crown of the root ball. That's very important. So you can see here we have the graft of the tree. So that's the graft. This is my rootstock down here. This is the actual honey mandarin here. And then you can see where my roots actually start to flare out, which is right here. And when you saw Lori and I kind of digging all those, the wood chips, the broken down wood chips out, we were trying to get down to this root flare. Now, what's very important is that this root flare is at least even or slightly above ground level. Now we're going to have a ring, a donut ring out here, and we'll have a secondary ring in here that's basically keeping water from pooling up against the tree itself. So you can see here I've probably got a good, probably 2 inches or so where that root flare is above ground level. So I think we're good here. I think we can go ahead and get this filled in. What's great is I'm still seeing lots and lots of worms in here. So Lori and I are going to go ahead and get this straight because I think we might need to angle it a little bit more and then get our backfill in so we can see what that looks like. So you can see we have this berm that we've created here. Now, most people, when they plant a fruit tree, they think, okay, I'm good. Maybe I'll stake it. We will stake this one. We don't always do that, but it is pretty top heavy. So we're gonna have to stake this tree here probably for the first year or so. We'll use 5-foot T-posts, drive them in the ground. The way our wind comes in, it traditionally comes in from east and west. It's coming in now this way. So I'll put a couple stakes basically on either side here, and that'll keep it in place. But now we have a berm on the inside, so we will water this in here in just a moment. You can see this is going to settle. So one of the reasons why I keep it a few inches above grade, it will sink, and I don't want it to wind up below grade. Also, I have this secondary berm. So what you're going to watch Lori and I do now is actually connect to our irrigation. So you can see it's actually right behind me here. So this is where we're going to have a 1/2 gallon per minute bubbler. Now that will actually be right on the edge of the outside berm. So just for reference, to give you an idea, this is what, about 5 feet away. So we're going to have about a 10-foot diameter circle that's going to be the outer ring or donut that we create, and then it will have wood chips and all kinds of other great stuff in here that'll really allow this tree to grow out and be comfortable further away from the tree, because we want to encourage the root growth to come out and be out here in this ring, and then of course further on out from there. So what we need to do now, we do need to get some water on this tree. So we're going to put, I don't know, a gallon or two of water in here just to let that settle a bit more. And then we need to get to digging our outer ring. So we're going to use the auger combination of things to get our outer ring done. Once we're done, we'll come back to you. I can tell you what, we've done these rings. In fact, we did over 100 of them on the old property. Using that auger made this so much easier. Now, still not easy, but a whole lot easier. But this will give you an idea of just the size and scope of the rings that we're talking about here. In fact, right behind Lori is the flag for our next tree. So our next Mandarin is right behind her. So essentially where you guys are at will be where the tree's at. That ring will come pretty close to this one, so within a few feet, and that is by design because we want to have the roots that we're already seeing in here, these little feeder roots. We want them coming out here and being nice and comfy in here and then continuing to move over. What's great about planting them in these rows and having similar rings as we go along is those roots will eventually find each other and start growing into each other, giving it plenty of space to grow out. Now, we did find that was the case with the old farm, and we're hoping that's the case here as well. In addition, you can see I've got my riser over there, so we dug that out just a little bit, so not exactly a complete ring, but we want to make sure as that turns on, the water can flow into here. Now, in addition, don't expect that to necessarily completely fill this every time, although it may. The idea is whenever it does rain, this is a swale and a berm. So if you guys are familiar with permaculture, that's essentially what we've just created on a much, much smaller scale. We have our berm up here on either side. We have our swale here in the middle. Now, as the water pours over, we have this about the same height as this, so it can spill over this way. Again, by design, we don't want it necessarily spilling into and up against the trunk, but water will penetrate in through here to help water these roots. And then of course, it will penetrate further out to help allow those roots to go out further out from the ring. So definitely a great design for your fruit trees. Okay, so I had a little hiccup there, running out of battery life, trying to get a few things wrapped up. Want to finish this up for you guys. Okay, we only did a couple things while we were kind of working on some other things with the battery charging. First thing is we did get our ½ gallon per minute bubbler on here, tested it out, it works great. So now what we need to do is we need to fill this ring. So the first thing we're going to do is walk right over here to the chicken coop, grab some straw, get a thin layer of straw down. The worms that we know are already in here are going to love chewing on that stuff, breaking it down into worm castings. And then of course we are going to need to grab some wood chips. So we'll head back to our wood chip pile that's been piling up really well over the winter time. So we're going to go ahead and get those things done and we'll come back to you. So like that, we're done. Now, of course, it did take us some time. We had to do a couple things in between, but for the most part, this is finished. In fact, it actually is completely done. The only thing we haven't done yet is we haven't actually filled the ring with water, which we're going to do as soon as we're done and off camera. We'll fill this ring in completely, really until it starts overflowing. That'll help settle the wood chips because the wood chips are mounded up. So they're going to settle down quite a bit. And of course, we'll have to continue to fill in. Now, this is the first tree of, well, our first round's 150. So we got a lot more work to go. But it'll give you an idea of how we're going to be planting our fruit trees here on the farm. Now, one thing we did notice, we did try out that ½ gallon per minute bubbler. We're going to need to let that go for a couple hours each time. And that's really by design as well. We did want to make sure we could water once or twice a week as opposed to multiple times a week, which we had to with the drip system. Either one obviously will work. But in this case, the way we have our well set up, we have it set up so that it has the capacity in order to do this kind of volume. Now, to give you an idea, We have this mandarin tree in, and as Lori pans that way, I don't know whether you'll make it up on camera or not, but we've got a whole lot more citrus trees to go just here in the front of the farm. There's a lot of work still to be done. We were happy with the auger. The auger worked great for softening up the soil to get that ring placed so much faster than the old pick that we were using on the old property. That worked out fantastic. One thing we know for sure, trucking wood chips, it took 2 truckloads of wood chips. Doing that by hand, that was a bummer. So I know for sure there is gonna be a tractor in our future. So just want to thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Questions or comments, leave those in the comments section down below. Instagram and Facebook, we post content there you won't see here on the YouTube channel. And our Amazon shop, I'll leave a link down in the description. That's a free, painless way to help support the channel. If you start with that link, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you. All right, I'm too excited, I need to settle down. Okay, so the day is finally here. We are putting the first shovel into the ground. That's coming up next.
Not the first shovel, we've used shovels all over the place.
We have?
Irrigation?
No. Okay, let me do that intro over again. You're right. Irrigation. We had to do the fencing. Okay, there's been shovels all over the place in the ground. Let's try that again. It is time to get our first tree in the ground. That's up next. I gotta settle down. The reason being is these roots are gonna go out and get... So just wanna thank you for joining us today. I'm wiped out. Done.